Think of Liverpool and the mind will conjure up images of poor social housing, high unemployment and abject poverty.
Back in the 1800s, it was a prosperous place to live because of the success of its port.
But that success had been built upon a history of extreme human suffering. By the close of the 18th century, 40% of the world's slaves were transported on ships that had voyaged from Liverpool. The vast profits from this abhorrent trade transformed Liverpool into one of Britain's leading cities. Stephen French, known in the underworld as the Devil, grew up in Liverpool and earned his moniker by terrorising, torturing and robbing drug dealers. A direct descendant of the slaves that arrived in the port, he believes that the racist views that permitted slavery still exist in the city and beyond.
I'm a product of the African slave trade and the Irish potato famine. All my ancestors managed to survive that horrific crossing of the Atlantic. So out of a ship of 300, 100 to turn up, and those at the bottom, crushed and mashed, were called nitty-gritty. My heritage is nitty-gritty. On the black side. On the white side, the Irish came. The Irish Holocaust, the potato famine, and they turned up here, and they ended up in the port of Liverpool. The wealth of Liverpool is built on slavery. All the fancy buildings in the city centre, all built on the backs of blacks. You've got a road called Penny Lane. It's a great Beatles song. I've wrote to the council numerous times, asking them to change the name from Penny Lane to Freedom Lane. Because the simple path, it's a homage to a slave trader. You can't talk about the drugs, you can't talk about the economy without talking about slavery. You can't talk about without talking about the racism. I remember the conservative slogans from the 1970s. If you want a nigger for the neighbour, vote Labour. Rooms to rent. No Irish, no blacks, no dogs. Why do you think we were so furious? Why do you think that we set the city on fire? The only individual that got it harder than a Scouser was a black Scouser. You've got to understand what makes me who I am and the way I am and the ferocity that's in my genes. We landed here 400 years ago. It took us 400 years to get from the docks to the top of Parliament Street. People forget the history. So I became a ferocious robber baron. Individuals like me, Curtis, lots of us turned to a life of crime. So you've always got to look at the history of why individuals are the way they are.
Slavery was abolished in 1833, but Liverpool continued to benefit from international trade. By the end of the Second World War, the city's heyday was over. As Britain traded more with Europe, Liverpool found itself on the wrong coast. As businesses failed and unemployment figures soared, the ever-resourceful Scouse villains used the port to import drugs from all four corners of the globe. On the streets and in Clubland, drugs created an extremely competitive market. Fistfights in the underworld were soon replaced with gun battles. Liverpool and other cities throughout the mainland would never be the same again. Former martial arts world champion and doorman Gary Sandland witnessed this violent transition.
When drugs were introduced to Clubland, did the violence change?
It went from being drunken guys who want to shout and scream and be rowdy to tablets, ecstasy and the likes. Then you get into the coke, where people can get aggressive. When tablets and coke became involved, that's when the money side comes involved. And that's when a guy comes to the door and you search him and he's got a bag of pills the size of a bag of crisps. Well, he hasn't fronted them. Some big gang member somewhere has fronted that. So you take them off him or someone else does, then there's going to be murder. I've been involved in many, many serious incidents. At 96 fights, 52 pro, 44 amateur. As a kickboxer, I ended up being world heavyweight champion, and I was world heavyweight champion for 7 years with 14 title defences. My very worst fight was in a big club, the biggest club at one time in the area. It's now since been closed down and demolished. On this particular time, there was a door security firm that come looking for somebody. They came into the nightclub that I was running. They came in early looking for the head doorman on the place at the time. 2 doormen at the front, glass doors, fronted them. What are you looking for? We're looking for a couple of guys. Don't know them. Instantly, these 14 or so guys knocked these doormen out and tried to barge through the doors. Well, fortunately or unfortunately, I was just inside the doors. I steps out with my best buddy, Steve, and immediately had to start fighting. I was hit immediately with a knuckle duster which damaged the side of my face badly at the time, but I retaliated with a punch which put the guy through the window. My best buddy kicks one of the running up guys who's got a knife in his hand. Luckily for us, we're on about a flight of 5 steps. This guy flies into them and knocks them down like a Skittles. They jump up, pull the knives out, one had a chain, run at us, and we were just fighting for our lives. The owner's son of the club came out, was grabbed hold of, fell on the floor and was stabbed 7 times. The other doorman had the bottle smashed into his face, 35 stitches right down his face, and was unconscious. The other 2 doormen were lying on the floor unconscious and were getting kicked to death virtually and literally. Anyway, we managed to keep fighting and managed to force them back because we had the advantage of the steps, and there was only the 3 of us left fighting because the other 2 doormen had come round and been knocked out with the bottle. The other one had a piece of 3x2 had been smashed in the face. It was carnage. It was horrendous. Several guys stabbed. The owner stabbed 7 times, and eventually they backed off and made a run for it. The story carries on from there because later that evening I was contacted to say, listen, you better get down here to a meeting of different gangs to say, look, if this problem isn't resolved tonight, we're going up, or someone will go up to the hospital and they'll shoot the guy dead in bed, the owner's son. If any names are mentioned, if it goes any further. So there's going to be a bloodbath. Sort it out. We spoke. We decided, yeah, there'll be no witnesses, there'll be no statements, and that was the end of that one. 2 people nearly died. One was blinded, virtually, and 4 or 5 knocked out and trampled on, and serious injuries.